Are you growing your money in retirement? Hey folks, welcome back. This is Retirement Roadmap with Master Plan Retirement Consultants. My name is Evan. With me, as always, retirement planner Mark Fricks. Today we'll discuss strategies for continuing to grow wealth during retirement. Planning for retirement means transitioning from an accumulation phase to a decumulation phase. All those assets and savings that you've built up over the years of working, they now have to be used to replace that paycheck that you're walking away from. But that does not mean we don't still need our portfolios to grow. In fact, longevity risk is one key factor in retirement planning. You don't want to mess up, Mark, and accidentally outlive your money.
Yeah, we certainly want to have an income plan that is providing that check every month. We want it to be a solid plan, one that anticipates inflation, one that doesn't stop if one of the partners passes away. But at the same time, you've got to have that backup money, and it's got to keep up with inflation too. So you've got to have some growth going on there, because things happen in retirement, whether it be a new roof or, whether it be something as catastrophic as losing a loved one, your spouse, or long-term care needs, things like that. I'm sure we'll touch on all that, but you've still got to have that growth bucket or buckets to the side as that backup.
Absolutely. And for most people, like I touched on at the beginning of this, with the preface, a lot of times we have to make sure that we cover income first, because if we don't have our income taken care of, then we are put in a position to where managing our withdrawals from our growth accounts and things like that can become really tricky and dangerous.
That's a relatively new concept too. I mean, 40, 50 years ago, virtually everyone had a pension. So you had Social Security, a pension, and most houses were paid for. I can remember my grandfather and grandmother, their house was paid for. They lived a simple life. He worked for years in the mill, had a pension, had the Social Security, and their only savings were CDs in a savings account, right? So, but a different world. We have less income. Social Security has not kept up with inflation. The pensions have disappeared for the most part. And so that income has got to be locked in. We've got to get that income figured out, replacing that paycheck. And that's a hard thing to do. I mean, we talk to clients every day that talk about, one of the most difficult things was saying, I'm going to voluntarily walk away from a paycheck. Where's it coming from now?
Yeah, absolutely. So once we take care of that income, we really are splitting our assets, and this is a 10,000-foot view. This is a little bit of an oversimplification, but for the sake of the conversation. First, we've got to take care of our income buckets of assets and our growth buckets. And as far as our income buckets, first of all, we've got to look at what we have coming in. So maybe we have Social Security. Maybe you're one of the lucky remaining few who has a pension or something like that. But a lot of times, even if you have both of those things, you're going to have to peel away some of your assets to invest in some income-producing assets, whether that be a type of annuity for guaranteed income. We've got clients who have one of their streams could be investment real estate, things like that. But you do need to make sure you've got the cash flow and some diversification in there as well.
And income has become. There are fewer places to go for really effective income.
Right.
Used to, you could get a decent stream of income from interest on bonds. Bonds have not performed very well for a long time. So you're talking about maybe a 3 or 4% income stream. You've got, there were folks that used to really believe in dividend income. So let's invest in a bunch of dividend stocks. And the problem with dividends is they go away in bad times, plus the stock prices drop as well.
Right.
So it's a double whammy. Dividends aren't guaranteed. And again, you're talking about a well-designed dividend portfolio, probably between 3 and 5%. But that, again, that's wavering. So we really have fallen back on some very specially designed annuities. And just, a brief concept, and we'll do a show on annuities sometime soon again. But an annuity is a simple product that says, we're going to give you guaranteed income for the rest of your life. If you'll give us this chunk of money, you get it for the Social Security is the world's biggest annuity. So it's not a concept that's foreign. They've been around forever, but it's getting the right one. And so that's why we utilize those a good bit, because they can generate 5 to almost over 7% guaranteed income for lifetime. So that's pretty strong.
Yeah, absolutely. without getting too far down the rabbit hole of the income streams and various things, once we get our income taken care of, then we can start looking at our growth. And even before, you got to manage your withdrawals. So part of getting the right income bucket is making sure that you have like an annuity that's guaranteed income, that's protected from the market. The market can go up and down. But what if you need something on top of that? What if you need to? What if you have an emergency, or that roof needs replacing?
You always will.
Yeah, and you always will. Right.
It's life, and how many emails do we get a week? Somebody needing a distribution that was unexpected. My gosh, I had a client call me yesterday. $41,000 worth of dental work needed.
Yeah.
$41,000, and so that was not expected. I mean, their income for the whole year is like 80 between their different sources. So now
how many mouths is that for?
I think it's a group outing. I think I don't know, but it's crazy. And dental is something that's really not covered under Medicare and Medicaid and all that kind of stuff. So that's out of pocket expense. So it could be anything. And so having that backup is important, and then also, and I think we're going to get into this here in just a minute, is the fact that you probably need more than one growth bucket because different growth buckets react differently in different markets.
Right.
So every time somebody calls and says, "I need this amount of money," we immediately go to their assets and their portfolios and say, "Hey, this one's up 20% this year. Let's take that profit and take," or maybe this one's not a taxable event. I mean, there's so many different things to look at, but it has to be strategic.
Yeah, and avoid selling stocks when the market is down. That's easy. Everyone kind of understands that generally, but we don't tend to practice that very often. Sequence of returns
we do.
risk. Right. True.
We do.
The royal
Not so sure
we
about
or whatnot.
folks out there.
Yeah. Because you're fighting against your behavior, your emotion, and when you see things fall, you want to immediately pull out and bail. But that's when we lock in those losses and we don't get the bounce back. But sequence of returns risk is huge. We've had episodes on that. Let's keep withdrawals away from growth-oriented accounts during downturns, which is just what you said. So we want to make sure that we have multiple portfolios, multiple types of accounts that are growth-oriented, that have different flavors, that are reacting to different markets, because as you like to say, regardless of what's going on with the market, something is always making money somewhere.
Money.
So whether that be something, a little international stock, or maybe that be some defensive stock, or some super growth-oriented stock, or
small caps, real estate, precious metals.
Precious metals, huge.
There's so many different flavors, and we want one or two buckets that are fairly conservative that will still beat inflation, but they're almost always going to be in the positive range.
Yeah.
So having one or two of those is kind of a backup to cash. That's the first place we look. But again, if I've got a nice, over the last 18 months or so, our precious metal holdings for our clients have just shot through the roof. I mean, a lot of our clients bought gold at $1,200 an ounce, $1,500 an ounce, and now, I mean, they hit five something. Now it's still around 4,000, so they've almost tripled their holdings. So number one is we need to shift some of that out because they got too much in gold now, right? But number two is great place to go for money when they need it.
Yeah.
So it's to keep them balanced from that standpoint. So again, very strategic. It's not just a hey, send them some money and we'll worry about it later.
And that's, you touch on a good point. Most retirees don't realize that they may also be too conservative. You want to be less conservative. If you've got your income taken care of, especially guaranteed income, if you've got Social Security, if you've got an annuity or something like that that's producing guaranteed income, you have the ability to be a little bit more aggressive. I'm not saying to be an 8 out of 10 and to go crazy, but you have the ability to be a little bit more diversified with your risk on your market side of your money. I'm not saying you shouldn't have, you should definitely have some backup to cash conservative buckets, but don't be too conservative. A portfolio that's too conservative for a retirement that could last decades may limit the long-term growth, which is why we appreciate the bucket approach so much. It can help balance the short, medium, and long-term.
And as you know, we do a risk tolerance test with a new client coming in, then redo it every few years as well. But so let's say it's a 1 out of 10, and let's say they're a 6. Well, that doesn't mean all their money needs to be in a risk 6 portfolio.
Yeah.
You need some that are 0, like annuities, and then maybe some that are 7 or 8, and then some in the middle. And by the time you average all those together, they fall into that 6 range.
Yeah.
So you're exactly right. I mean, having 1 or 2 long-term buckets that are, moderately aggressive, but that can average in the teens, that's pretty cool, because if you don't really, maybe that's a long-term care bucket.
Yeah.
Or whatever, And so 10, 15 years down the road, if they've averaged for the last 32 years 16%, then the next 32 years are probably going to average 16% as well.
Yeah.
So again, that spectrum is so important. And it's so funny, we have so many people come in. It's still so much old school out there where they come in and they just have a statement from their particular broker. And first of all, they make a change maybe once a year. Mm-hmm. We make a change every time there's a signal in the market, right? But number 2 is they all look very similar. They may have 4 different accounts with this brokerage firm. One's an IRA, one's a Roth, one's a spouse's IRA, and one's a brokerage account, and they virtually almost always have the same holdings in them. And it just amazes me that why not take advantage of the fact that they have to be separate accounts anyway? Do something different with them.
Yeah.
Make them work differently, because next year that one may do better, and the following year this one may do better, like we said earlier. So it's just such an old mentality that so many companies have just not caught up to. And it's really the big companies. And I think it's just that they're such beast that's very difficult to change the way they've always done things. And that's why we see a lot of brokerage statements that have they may have a management fee, but then they also have maybe some commissions. They have some funds that have some commissions built in. They have some fees built in. You have no idea what you're paying.
Well, and then, not to throw shade on anyone, but those are also the same guys that people come to us and say, well, I asked them when I should take Social Security, and they said, oh, whenever you want. They're like looking for...
We don't do that.
There are those who claim to be retirement planners
Mm-hmm.
Who have just opened an IRA for you or something. And,
Right.
An IRA is not a retirement plan. It's an account for retirement. It is not a plan.
Yeah. And hope and wish is not a plan either. And,
Hoping and wishing. Well, that is a plan. If you're planning on winging it, it can be a plan. But you did bring up something else that's important. Well, before we move on, let's take a moment actually to point out our website, masterplanretire.com. There you can schedule your complimentary consultation. That is a one-on-one conversation discussing your retirement, your hopes, your dreams, your fears, your goals. We run a series of reports for you, essentially a 10,000-foot view of your retirement to see, okay, what happens to our money? How long does it last? What happens when we stress test it, to give you a better picture of where your retirement stands, because you don't know where you can be if you don't know where you are now.
Exactly. And I know there's so many folks that I've had people tell us this all the time. I've had your number in my phone. I've had your number on my dashboard for 2 years or whatever, because it is something that can be difficult to face. Just like doing a will can be difficult sometimes, because you don't want to think about your mortality. But also, the mortality of your money. Most people don't feel like they've done a good enough job. I can tell you nobody's done a good enough job. I mean, I don't think anybody started at age 16 at their first job and opened an IRA. That doesn't happen. But it's the same thing with the way we live life. Nobody's perfect. We've all slipped up. But it's always time to correct and do better. So don't be afraid to come see us thinking they're going to judge me. They're going to look at what I've got, and I could have done better. And usually the case is they've done better than the average person.
Yeah, it's not knowing exactly how efficient your money can be in retirement. A lot of times you just see a number, you think of the years ahead, and well, if I'm taking money out of that every year, that thing's not going to, how long is that going to possibly last? It's not knowing how much can actually be done with a certain amount of money. And
that's what we do, is we take every area and make it much more efficient. So an example would be income, like we talked about earlier. What's the most efficient tool for producing income? So we can do a better job of that, and then do a better job of growth, and then do a better job of tax planning and paying less taxes, and do a better job of when to take Social Security. And you bring all of those pieces together, they're all more efficient, which makes the entire plan so much more efficient.
Yeah.
But the whole point was, don't don't feel like you're being judged when you bare your soul of your finances. It's face it. Let's do something about it. Kind of like going to a doctor. You put it off because you've got this pain. I don't want to know what it is. You need to know what it is so you can treat it. So it's just kind of a way of, I'm just trying to portray the fact that I understand how a lot of people feel.
It's never too late to look at it, even if you are currently retired. But if you've still got some years left,
It's even better.
Man, yeah, take advantage of it as soon as possible. Don't wait any longer, because time really is on your, the more time you have, the more prepared you can be.
Absolutely.
Masterplanretire.com. You did bring up something else earlier that is huge and has been overlooked for a really long time, and that's not overpaying in taxes and making sure that you have a tax-efficient withdrawal strategy. And we like tax diversity. We want pre-tax, post-tax, and tax-free. We'd like to have all three options when available. I mean, if it was all tax-free, that would be the best. Perfect. But that's hard to get to. But we want to avoid pushing ourselves into a higher tax bracket. Yes, we know that IRA withdrawals are all taxable per withdrawal, but also each withdrawal counts towards your taxable income for the year. But we also want to acknowledge the difference between gross and net on our withdrawals. If you need $5,000, you're going to have to pull out, I don't know, $6,500 or more to make sure that you get that net if it's from an IRA account. So keep in mind, whatever your need is, you're also having to pull out more to cover the taxes for that. And that's not efficient on our account growth either.
Right. And we have a great tax class that we teach, and hopefully we'll get it back up on webinar here soon as well on our website. But when we start revealing to the classes the various taxes, and our belief, very strong belief, is that taxes are on sale right now. They have been for a while. They are not going to remain on sale a whole lot longer. We have too much debt in this country, too many programs in trouble, and too many politicians that want to spend money. So who's going to pay for it? The middle class.
And by sale, meaning that we are at a historically low tax rates right now.
Thank you, exactly. And so now's a great time maybe to shift some of that taxable money into some tax-free type accounts. And that's another whole level of planning, but it is something that as you progress through retirement, there's a little bit of pain now, a whole lot less pain later if you have some tax-free income.
Yeah, absolutely. Putting yourself on a conversion schedule, especially depending on your age and where you are in your retirement or preparation to that retirement. It is a multi-year strategy leading up to that, but making sure that you have a tax strategy in place, whether it's through Roth contributions if you're still working over time, or even starting those conversions. You can convert. There's another thing. You can only contribute when you're working, when you have earned income. You can only contribute to Roths or IRAs then. Just talking specifically about Roths right now for tax-free income. You can convert from an IRA to a Roth at any time. There's no...
Age 18.
Any amount, any age. And so making sure that you, especially if you have the time, and you have that timeline where you can start to watch and monitor your conversion strategically every year to make sure that you are in a reasonable tax bracket doing that. The power behind that just pays dividends. So it's just like our taxes can snowball with the retirement account withdrawals, the earlier you start on that Roth contributions and conversions and that tax strategy, that snowballs into such a powerful tool later in retirement.
And be aware, if you're still working, there's a pretty good chance if your company has a retirement plan that it has a Roth portion. So if you have a 401k at work, I'm willing to bet there's probably an opportunity that you can put that money instead of into the traditional 401k, you probably have a Roth inside of that 401k as well. The thrift savings plan with the federal government has a Roth option. Now you don't get a tax deduction this year, but if you're getting into your 50s and beyond, maybe you've got some of the kids out of the house and through college. Maybe there's a little bit more money. Maybe you don't need as much of a tax deduction. Maybe you just need to bite the bullet and have less of a tax deduction too. But check on that. I still run into people. They're like, "Oh, my company doesn't have a Roth." I say, "Go check." They come out and go, "You know what? My company does. They never advertised it.
Well, something even newer that's available now, a lot more 401ks are offering the opportunity to convert within
Inside your
within
401k.
or
Yeah.
your TSP or employer-sponsored plan. So check those out. The more you know what your options are, the better vantage point you have to where you can possibly be. But there are so many different options as far as this isn't so much a tax planning episode, but the more you save on taxes, the more that you get to keep in growth positions. But there are other tools beyond Roths too that help us with tax advantages, including life insurance policies, things like that might have potential for tax-free loans against cash value in retirement. You could weigh the fees and market risk involved, of course, but LIRPs, LIRPS, we use those quite a bit. Life insurance retirement plans is a specially designed life insurance product that offer growth in addition to death benefit, in addition to tax-efficient cash value, even potential long-term care assistance as well. So there's so many tools, and again, you don't know what you need until you evaluate. That's why those consultations are so important. You don't know where your strengths and your weaknesses or areas of opportunity are. We have a million tools, but a million tools aren't going to be right for you. There's going to be very specific things that are going to be for your specific case. So,
and talk about taxes too. Tax deferral is very important as well. So if you've got a brokerage account and it's growing, and hopefully it's growing, right? So you're going to pay taxes on that growth every year, the capital gains, dividends, interest, things like that. So maybe some of that money can be sliced off and placed into a non-qualified, non-IRA annuity, because annuities are not taxable as they grow. So you're getting tax-deferred growth. And then when you do, if you do end up taking money out as income in the future, only the profit part is taxable. So they're somewhat tax efficient. So we have many people that will get like a nice inheritance, and they're like, okay, now I've got $200,000. What do I do with it? Well, let's grow some of it in the market, but maybe we need to defer some of those taxes as well. Otherwise, you're creating another tax situation.
Yeah, and we see it, a lot of times with our clients who we've been around for a while. Maybe they did open a non-qualified annuity 10 years ago. They turn on the income, and then that's been spitting out income for 5+ years, and maybe all the profit now has been dwindled down, and now they're into principal. Well, all of a sudden, they're not paying taxes on those withdrawals anymore.
Right,
That's
right.
completely tax-free.
So the rest of their life, unless there's a little bit of growth, they might pay a little bit of taxes as they take money
Depending
out.
on the type, yeah.
But
for
typically, very little, if any, taxes once you scoop out that profit first. So, so another good growth place, and of course with the annuity that we use, it grows with the market up but doesn't go down, so it's protected growth. So again, if other things are down, that's a place you can go for money that's not down. So again, another growth type bucket.
It's again having the diversity in your buckets of not only just market money but guaranteed protected money as well. And when the market's rocky, we don't take from the market, take from one of these protected growth buckets. And that way they can keep growing and bounce back. There are a lot of different ways that we could continue on this conversation, but we're getting close to the end. We did mention, and maybe the last episode, I can't remember, but also for income, if you're in retirement, we're looking for purpose and things like that. Find a hobby or something that you love, and you can turn it into a job with some part-time income. I mean, you'd be shocked what a single year of part-time work can do to your withdrawals in retirement, and how many years you can gain in retirement longevity on your money.
We've got a client that just stopped working. He worked for, I think, BJ's, the big wholesale place. 86. I think he's 86. He just stopped. He was actually contributing to his 401k up until the last day. So he was not only saving money, needing less income, but also still saving money in his 401k. But he wasn't doing it because he had to. He's got money. He was doing it because he wanted to get out of the house 3 days a week.
Yeah.
He wanted to be on his feet. He wanted to interact with people. He wanted to keep his mind sharp. And it was fun. He enjoyed the people. So we're out of time. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Remember, plan well and prosper. Thanks.